Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you. Let's take this off. Can you tie it? Tie it back. Okay, on the disappearance of our acharyas, we always sing this song by Narottam Das Thakur, Saparshada Bhagavat Viraha Janita Valapa, lamentation due to separation from the Lord and His associates. So forgive me as I try to lead you in this. Page 91. Yeyanilo prema dana karuna pracho Thank you. Yeyanilo prema dana karuna pracho Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Achayata Ko Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Achayata Ko Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Mora Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Kaha Mora Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kale Kota Gela Goranata Raj Eka Kale Kota Gela Goranata Raj Pashani kuti bo mata anile pashibo Pashani kuti bo mata anile pashibo Goranga gunera nidhi kota gele pabo Goranga gunera nidhi kota gele pabo Se saba sangira sange ye koi lo vilas Se saba sangira sange ye koi lo vilas Se sangana paya kande narotamo das Se sangana paya kande narotamo das Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki, he who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Sarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? Where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastime, Narottam Das simply weeps. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I thought we could hear from the 11th canto. This is a wonderful verse describing Guru Tattva to some extent by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Basically, it's Lord Krishna describing to Uddhava how a brahmachari should respect the spiritual master, but certainly applies to all of us. Acharya mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karichit namartya buddhya suryeta sarvadeva mayo guru Acharya mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karichit namartya buddhya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru Acharya mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karichit namartya buddhya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru Acharya mam niyam Mata. Acharya mam vijaniya karachit namarcha buddhya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. Acharyam, the spiritual master. Mam, myself. Krishna speaking. Vijaniyat, one should know. Na avamanyeta, one should never disrespect. Karichit, at any time. Na, never. Martya buddhya, with the idea of his being an ordinary man. Asuyata, one should be envious. Sarvadeva, of all demigods. Maya, representative. Guru, the spiritual master. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. One should know the Acharya as myself. Never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he's the representative of all the demigods. This verse appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, Chapter 1, Text 46. His Divine Grace Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravajikacharya Ashotarastatsat Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has commented on this verse as follows. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.17.27, spoken by Lord Sri Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. He is specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He's like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. Manu Samhita 2.140 explains the duties of an acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread worn on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after this samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayapurana, an acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literature, explains the purpose of the Vedas, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. It's worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an acharya but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender. And this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Dev. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide Acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead. And therefore to envy such an Acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive to transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna. But at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect, to exploit the sentiments of their disciples. But such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha 2.13 has clearly defined that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, Later acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead, because he's a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service, and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered to be either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki. Could we sincerely pray for the mercy? Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shirta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I apologize to you, those of you who might have been expecting Dravida Prabhu to be speaking, this being Wednesday, his normal day. He's given a class online to devotees in Lima, Peru, a far distant corner of the world. And we traded classes Monday for Wednesday. That's why I ask that you sincerely pray. Putting a little twist to a prayer by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. He says, even by reading, or I say, even by writing millions of books, the greatest poets and philosophers cannot imagine even a tiny fraction of the splendor emanating from the host of jewels, which is the transcendental qualities of Srila Prabhupada. Oh friend, please control your mind and senses and go to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, which are like a jewel mine of the mellows of devotional service. What to speak of a crow-like fool like me? To speak on Srila Prabhupada, one has to have the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Mercy comes in the form of service. By rendering service, one will get the mercy. If one gets the mercy, one gets realizations. And one who has realizations, he can share those with others. You can't give what you don't have. You can repeat the message, and that's our duty. That's what helps us show that we have some desire to become a representative of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada at one time said, if you want to fully represent me, then develop all the Vaishnava qualities. It doesn't matter what your position or title is. such a person can represent the spiritual master. So I certainly fall far short in that way. But I'll do my best to quote Srila Prabhupada directly and others who have glorified Srila Prabhupada. And I will certainly be trying to earn his pleasure and hopefully enlivening, satisfying you. You all deserve it. It's such an auspicious day. Appearance and disappearance of the spiritual master are the same. They're transcendental. Because whether a spiritual master lives or quote-unquote dies, leaves our vision, he's always serving Krishna. The body, not so important. It's actually useless in comparison to the spiritual body. But the spiritual master is so kind that he teaches his submissive followers and servants how to utilize the body in the way of best use of a bad bargain. And Srila Prabhupada is such an extraordinary spiritual master. I mean, on a very personal note, when Mukunda Das asked Srila Prabhupada very early on, 1968, being concerned he was old, body was old, and he'd had a heart attack or something that frightened him, realizing he could leave us. We could lose him. And he went and asked, being encouraged by some of his godbrothers, who will replace you as our spiritual master when you leave? And Srila Prabhupada, when he heard the question, it hurt him. And he humbly replied, my spiritual master was not an ordinary spiritual master. He delivered me. So he who brings down the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his extraordinary surrender and full faith to the mission of the Sampradaya of his spiritual master, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they're irreplaceable to the individuals, to the devotees that he saves. Srila Prabhupada, in 1977, after disappearing, 78 maybe, during the Gaur-Purnima festival, word was coming around that his godbrother, very respected Paramahamsa Vaishnava, Srila B.R. Sridhar Swami, was saying that Srila Prabhupada was a Shakti Vaishnavatar, and this was before anybody had said or heard that. And Dravida Prabhu went to Navadvip, to his temple, and asked him about it. What was the Shastra that you based that on? And now it's perfectly clear because of the mercy of the devotee. But he quoted Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nama Samkirtan, Krishna Shakti Vina, Nahi Tara Parvartana. The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. My godbrother, a Siksha Guru of mine, Jananivas Prabhu, he doesn't take that as the highest praise, Shakti Vaishnavatar. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada quoted Raghunath Das Goswami as saying we should see our spiritual master in light of his intimate relationship with Krishna. This is referring to his eternal identity. I quoted the other day that one who has life, he'll preach. In the first part of that statement, at least one time that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said it, he said, the Vrajvasis, they have life. And one who has life can preach. Referring to actually the absolute bona fide spiritual master, fully empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has a realized relationship has developed his love for the Lord, and he is the ideal spiritual master to whom one can take shelter of and endeavor to the best of one's ability to reawaken our own covered love of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada was predicted by Lord Krishna himself many thousands of years ago. It's mentioned in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Mother Ganga was worried about Kali Yuga. She knew how sinful it was going to become. Wasn't the first time she had seen it. And we understand that when you associate with pure Vaishnavas, actually, even with each other, for example, a handshake, you're actually transferring karma. The Brahmins, they understand the effect of association in purification or contamination. Brahmins have no problem with, understanding the etiquette, not the etiquette, but the behavior given by the Lord in Vedic culture to be clean, to be pure in body, mind, words, protected from the material onslaughts. So, Mother Ganga, she knew that it would become so sinful and people would bathe in her and she would have to take sinful karma. And she was very concerned, which is appropriate. That's one of the injunctions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Those who take up the service of Diksha Guru, they're advised one should not take a lot of disciples. If I'm not mistaken, an unlimited number of disciples. It's very dangerous. You have to be completely sold out to the Supreme Lord, a complete transparent medium representing the disciplic succession, so that you're not acting in any way, shape, or form in your own interest, but simply in the interest of the Lord. The Lord can absorb everyone's sinful karma. Ma suchaha, don't worry about that. But Ganga was worried about the sin she would take on. And she told him, don't worry, that after 5,000 years of Kali Yuga have passed, my mantra upasaka, a great devotee and worshipper of Krishna's holy names, will appear and spread the chanting of Krishna's names, not only in India, but throughout the whole world. Lord Krishna explained that by the chanting of his holy names, the world will become spiritualized, and everyone will become Hari Bhaktas, engaged in the process of devotion to the Supreme. The purified devotees will visit the holy places and holy rivers of India and will purify them, as they will also purify those with whom they come in contact. We obviously see, no one can challenge it, that Srila Prabhupada was who Lord Krishna was speaking about. Lord Chaitanya himself, in Chaitanya Mangala, he's quoted by Lochan Das Thakur, shares with us what Lord Chaitanya said. He said that there will come an empowered devotee who would take the Sankirtan process everywhere. I want to flood the whole world with the chanting of the holy names. I will personally preach and flood India with the Harinam Sankirtan, chanting of Krishna's names. And my Senapati Bhakta, English being great devotee commander, will come and preach in different countries and flood the world with chanting of Hare Krishna. Senapati Bhaktas. This is a term that was given to Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. In terms of honorific titles, this is just like Prabhupada. Very, very high. Very, very special. So Srila Prabhupada, we know, I'm preaching in the choir, how exalted he is and how fortunate we are. Srila Prabhupada was born in 1896, September 1st in Calcutta. You can go there, you can see the place he was born. The tree's still there, the funky little dwelling. In 19 22, he met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And we all know this story, and I won't spend much time on it. But as soon as he and his educated friends came in, before even getting up from having bowed down to him, he said, "You are educated young men. You should be spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya in English." Before they even got up. And Srila Prabhupada had a doubt. He said, "But we're subjugated by Great Britain. Who's going to listen to the message of Lord Chaitanya when we're not even free of the British rule?" But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur stressed the urgency of Krishna consciousness, that is the solution to any and all miseries of this world. Any and all miseries of this world. And that there is no time to wait or to try to take care of something else beforehand, because time is short. And there is no greater need for any of us than embracing devotional service to Krishna. Now when Srila Prabhupada heard these instructions and had his association that night, in his heart he accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his spiritual master. And he meditated upon the instruction he had been given. He never let it slip his mind. In 1933 he took formal initiation like we heard in the purport. He'd only had association with his spiritual master a few times, but he always kept in mind, I have to serve him. He's my master, life after life. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his disappearance, Leela, took place in 1936. And just a fortnight before, Srila Prabhupada wrote him a letter, meditating on his desire to serve. But he thought himself incapable. He says, "I should have joined immediately when I first met him, but I was a householder, had just had a son, and I wasn't able." And so he had this feeling of inadequacy. How can I serve you? So many brahmacharis and sannyasis are doing such nice service. What can I do? And he received the same instruction. You should preach the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking people of the world. Now, in 1944, he began writing his Bhagavad Gita in English, which is something that is carried on to this day by his disciples. In the heyday, when Srila Prabhupada was on the planet, they were printing how many and distributing how many a month? You haven't remember, Vijay Prabhu? I mean, it was hundreds of thousands going out every month. It was a huge order from the publisher and distributing. And I wanted to make mention that Srila Prabhupada in every way shows us what to do and what not to do. Following the instructions of the spiritual master is tantamount to meeting personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you want to ask yourself if we're going back home to Godhead, just ask yourself, are we following the instructions of the spiritual master? If we can honestly say yes, then no problem. Are we going back home to Godhead? Yes. As our spiritual master sees fit. I mean, Rupa Goswami has a verse where he says, just like a boy and a girl have natural attraction for each other, may my attraction to you be awakened. I was thinking the other day, in modern terms, tweaking that same verse and appeal to the Lord, that just as everybody is so attached to their phone, practically speaking, it doesn't leave their hand, and they will spend so many hours, any spare moment, it'll go in their hand and they'll be glued to it. So just as everyone is attached to this thing, may our attraction for Srila Prabhupada take place. In 1947, Srila Prabhupada, who was known as Abhay Charanaravinda Das, he had been given an honorary title of Kavi because of the poem he wrote on one of the Vyasa Puja ceremonies in Bombay to his spiritual master. Does anybody have the couplet memorized? Basically, because he glorified Bhaktisiddhanta as teaching the glories of Krishna as a person and destroying the ignorance of impersonalism, the calamity of impersonalism, having destroyed it, dispelled it, because of that one small verse, he got the mercy, he got the pleasure of his spiritual master, and he would repeat it to many people. Yeah, please, say it.
Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved, and personal calamity thou hast removed. Something like that.
Thank you. So simple, but it got the mercy of his spiritual master. And he was given the title Kavi. Well, in 1947, he was given the title Bhaktivedanta before receiving sannyas. Because when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw the poem he had offered, along with this, it wasn't just a poem, that was just part of the offering. He has this offering that goes on for 4 or 5 pages, and it's such a ecstatic offering entitled The Universal Teacher. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, anything he writes, you publish it in our Sajjanatoshini, in our literature. And so he received the title Bhaktivedanta because he was a preacher and because his devotion was noted, even though he was a householder. But his devotion and his scholariness, his realization of the scripture and the teachings of his spiritual master warranted that he be entitled as Abhaya Charanara Vinda Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. In 1954, he took Vanaprastha. He was 58 years old. And he left home. Wandered around sometimes. He tried starting a society in Jhansi, the League of Devotees, basically based on the same 7 principles that ISKCON is based upon. But Krishna had other ideas. 1956, he moved. Oh, I got to back up here. During his household days, I told you that the desire never left his mind. And he was based out of Calcutta. And he would go to Shantipur. Some of you have been to Shantipur. It's the home of Advaita Acharya, who personally called down Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as Narottam Das Thakur prays that Sitapati Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, if you will give me your mercy, then surely Gaur Nitai will give me their mercy. So he would go there and he would chant japa and pray to Advaita Acharya there. And he'd come once a month, maybe on weekends, maybe once or twice, maybe sometimes a little skip, but he came regularly. The Acharya noted him, but he always stayed absorbed. He didn't go to socialize or visit. He just chanted, and often the Pujari would see tears in his eyes as he chanted his japa. Then he didn't come for a long time. I didn't say yet that he took sannyas in 1959 from Pragya Keshava Maharaja, a godbrother of his. Srila Prabhupada was one of the co-founding members of an institution that he started in service to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a Paramahamsa, pure Vaishnava. And when Srila Prabhupada shared with his godbrother that I've been having these dreams, our Srila Prabhupada has instructed me to take sannyas. What do you think I should do? He said, yes, immediately I will give you sannyas. And so he took sannyas in 1959. And he still continued on in Vrindavan. Most of the time he arrived in Vrindavan, lived at Vamshi Gopal, a temple there on the bank of the Jamuna. But we know that after some time he moved to Radha Damodar Mandir. No accident in that. He wanted to be at the feet of Rupa Goswami, his samadhi and his bhajan kutir there. Radha Damodar are deities, Ishtadevs of Srila Prabhupada. On the boat he said, I'm missing very much my Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath, and Radha Damodar. And one young boy who lived next door to Radha Damodar, oh, I didn't tell you what Prabhupada said the last time this Pujari saw him. He always thanked the Pujari for his services when he was leaving. And on the last time he saw him, he asked him, "Who are you?" He replied, "My name is Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj." The year is 1965. I'm an unworthy disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, my Divine Master. I've been coming here for such a long time because my Gurudev has given me an impossible mission. His desire for me to go across the ocean to the Western countries and spread the sublime teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are countless souls there who have never heard of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, so they're suffering greatly. I've not known how this mission of his will be successful, so I've been coming here to this special house of Advaita Acharya, where he, Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would gather together to plan the Sankirtan movement. It was here that they launched the inundation of love of God that swept India and continues to this day. Thus I've been praying very earnestly here that they will all give me their mercy, that somehow they will empower me and guide me. I want to satisfy my Gurudev's desire, but I am feeling unqualified to do this. And the Pujari continues, as he was speaking to me, I saw tears falling down his cheeks again. Then he continued, tomorrow I'm leaving for Calcutta to go upon a ship across the ocean to America. I do not know what will befall me there, but I'm praying most earnestly here for help. And he very humbly asked me for his blessings. I was indeed moved by this Vaishnava's sincerity and determination as I watched him depart upon his journey. Now backtracking again, when he was living in Vrindavan, I hope I didn't just lose that. Did I just foolishly lose that? Vrindavan, sannyas years. Sorry, I'll find it very quickly. Here we go. When he was living in Vrindavan at Radha Damodar Mandir, he had two rooms. In the one room that he cooked in and took prasadam, he could look right out the window and he could see Rupa Goswami's samadhi in Bhajan Kutir. And we know it was there in Radha Damodar that he had been given good advice. You know, magazines, they're nice, but people will read them, throw them away. Books are substantial. You should write books. So he started writing, translating, commenting on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He started on a Janmashtami. And when he did it, he paid for, very poor, but he managed to pay for a festival inviting many of the sadhus to inaugurate his beginning the service of writing the Bhaktivedanta purports. So anyway, there was a young boy who lived next door to the mandir, and he would hear all the time, in the middle of the night, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, someone crying and calling, yelling. But, he wanted to sleep. But one night on a full moon night, he got up, because having heard the voice again, he climbed on the roof of his house and looked down into Radha Damodar's courtyard, and he saw something very amazing. Srila Prabhupada was sweeping the courtyard of Rupa Goswami's samadhi. He was bending down with a small broom. We all know what the brooms look like, those sticks bundled together. And as he swept the ground by the samadhi, he was crying out, "Hey Rupa! Hey Sanatan! Hey Gurudev! Please give me your mercy. Without your mercy I cannot do anything. Give me the mercy. Give me the strength that I may fulfill your orders." And the young boy said, then I realized that it was he who was almost every night calling out, calling out, as he was sweeping like this. So he took the order of his spiritual master more important than anything else in his life. I'll share with you, if I can get it here. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah, it's coming. Hare Krishna. The mood of such devotees, of Srila Prabhupada. This is by Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He said, if one always thinks like that, then one can maintain that constant eagerness. Vaishnav Kripa Tata Sarva Siddhi. If you get the mercy of a Vaishnav, a pure devotee or spiritual master, then you can have all perfection, Sarva Siddhi. One should think, oh, I can't do anything. I'm such a wretched, unqualified, unworthy person. I cannot render any service to my Guru. I cannot please him. I've not gotten anything. I've not gotten the mercy of my Guru. I've not pleased him. I've not taken advantage of meeting my Guru. Oh, what shall I do? I've not done anything. I do not have the mercy of my Guru. How can I get his mercy? You should always think like that. If you're satisfied and think, oh, I have mercy, I've gotten his mercy, I've pleased him, then everything's finished. It means you haven't got it. This is how you can maintain eagerness. Otherwise, it's not possible. So to maintain a lifetime desire, as Srila Prabhupada did, you know how earnest he was in his eagerness to get the mercy. And even when he got the mercy and things were rolling on, came to America in 1965 at 70 years old. September 17th, he arrives at the shore. We know that wonderful poem he wrote there at the, docked at the harbor, praying for the mercy. 1966, in one short year, he established ISKCON. And I don't have it right here, but it's worth looking up the 7 pillars, the 7 principles of ISKCON. It'll show you what we're supposed to be about, what we're supposed to be. In 1965, the devotees would address Srila Prabhupada as Swamiji. And 65, 66, when the early devotees were there, New York, San Francisco. Then Montreal was... anyway, Govinda Dasi, once again, gets credit. Her husband had called her Govindaji. And Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, said, Ji is not actually a very good term. It's kind of third class. You shouldn't call her Govindaji. And then she said, well, Swamiji, why do we call you Swamiji if it's third class? What would be the first class way to address you? He said, no, that's not so important. That's okay. Said, no, tell us. What would be a title that is first class? What name can we call you? And he said something like, Guru Dev, Acharya Dev. Forgive me for not being spot on exactly what he said. But the third choice was Prabhupada. And she said, well, of the 3, Guru Maharaj, Acharya Dev, Prabhupada, which is the best? He said, well, Prabhupada is nice. And that's where it began. Took a while to catch on, but there's a picture in Back to Godhead very soon thereafter, full and Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, founder Acharya of his International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada, and she was telling everybody, we don't call him Swamiji anymore. There was resistance, of course, but because Swamiji, they were accustomed, but his name took root. And then, a couple of years later, even though the title, I just mentioned it on one photograph, nobody had really, it wasn't stressed, or it hadn't really taken root and gone throughout the movement. But then in 1970, when there was some philosophical apasiddhanta that took place, neophyte devotees preaching Srila Prabhupada was God, Prabhupada was disgusted. He's actually ready to walk away. If this is what ISKCON turns into, this is not service to my spiritual master. He wasn't attached to the buildings, the money, the position. But then he came down hard. I'm the founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, which means as his spiritual master, it was understood by all the servants, disciples of him, that the institution was his body, and that everybody who was a member of the institution was an extension of him, that they were instruments in his hand, and that they were completely subordinate to and dependent upon his desire, his instructions. And actually there was nothing contradictory, but it's actually the perfection of getting full awakening of one's potential when one is completely surrendered to the will of the founder Acharya. So that's what's going on in ISKCON. That's the standard. Sometimes throughout the years, some people try defining ISKCON. It's not simply the institution, this or that, but I can't say much in my credit. It's kind of pathetic what service I've rendered to Srila Prabhupada. But one thing I know I can do is never leave ISKCON. One time, Srila Prabhupada went to Tokyo to save a couple. Burjan and his wife, Jagatarini, who were being influenced by some disciples who were going off. And he was dictating purports, and he called Burjan in one morning, and he said, "I'd like you to hear this." And he played the dictation of the purport he just said. And the purport, in essence, I don't think I have it at my fingertip, but he said, if one has difficulty with one's God brothers within the movement of his spiritual master, then no matter what, one should stick to the mission of the spiritual master, never leave it. And if need be, one can come and personally associate with the spiritual master. And the first book, that was the first edition of that book with his purport, left out the part, under no condition should one leave the institution. And it wasn't until there was some correction. The dictation's there, and Burjan confirms it in his own glorification of Srila Prabhupada. What's the name of that book? My Glorious Master. What a wonderful book. But he said it like it is. He remembers, because Prabhupada was talking to him, don't ever leave. And, an inverse of that is, I pray that I'm never kicked away. So, it's important. The mission of the spiritual master, if we want to become a disciple of the spiritual master, a bona fide, worthy disciple, we have to understand the mission of the spiritual master. But simply understanding it isn't sufficient, because it takes great surrender to be empowered, as we read, by Krishna's mercy, his energy, his Shakti. It takes empowerment to live up to helping manifest that mission in the lives of others. So I really thought that it was important to stress that Srila Prabhupada always felt himself as a very insignificant servant of his spiritual master, an unqualified, unworthy disciple that only by his mercy he is engaging. And by his mercy only are wonderful things happening. Srila Prabhupada didn't take personal credit. Now you may say, every once in a while he would manifest transcendental pride in the spirit soul, the fully awakened lover of Krishna. All emotions are there, including pride. Like one time on a morning walk in Bombay, somebody asked some kind of question, why didn't Lord Chaitanya go around the world himself and spread Krishna consciousness? And Srila Prabhupada said, because he left it for me. Something like that. That's the essence of it. So, Srila Prabhupada never took credit. He always gave it to his spiritual master and to Krishna. That is the credit. That's the example he's setting to us, that we're meant to be the servant of our spiritual master and all the previous acharyas. No spiritual master is an island. Every spiritual master is the manifestation of Krishna. This is the tattva. Diksha, Siksha, Vartma, Pradarshika, Guru. They're all manifestations of Krishna. They're all equally worshipable. And Srila Prabhupada wants that we all take up the family business of preaching. Now, in trying to define the empowerment of Srila Prabhupada to be a worthy servant and instrument in his spiritual master's hands, he had full faith in the instruction of his spiritual master. That we've already said, but I haven't said he had full faith, full realization in the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He came with his books, but in the beginning he just sat down in the park and chanted Hare Krishna on the sidewalk. It's all about the Yuga Dharma. All of in the printing, the distribution of the books, they're all an extension of the they are the mridanga, the kirtan, the glorification of the Lord going out in the greatest way possible. A personal instruction he got from his spiritual master at Radhakund. If you ever get money, print books. Srila Prabhupada engaged us and asked us to continue on. So this chanting of Hare Krishna, honestly, we became a household word because of chanting Harinam parties in the streets daily. In the early days, it was for hours and hours. And that's what Prabhupada did. He chanted for hours out in the public in New York. And when the devotees first, the most recent one, they went out, with Srila Prabhupada and danced in Thompson Square Park or whatever. But in San Francisco, when the devotees did a kirtan from the temple to Prabhupada's apartment there, and Prabhupada came out and looked at them in the window, and he hadn't told them to go out and do it. And they saw him, and then Upendra came to the window, his servant was waving, and they thought, oh, Prabhupada doesn't want us to chant. Like this. He come here. Yeah. Yeah, go away. Thank you, Vijay Prabhu. But he was saying, come here. He was overjoyed that they were taking the names out to the people. And everything about ISKCON is, whatever it is, it's about taking Krishna to those who are suffering. The heart of the Vaishnava of Srila Prabhupada, like his spiritual master, it's pierced by the lance of the realization how miserable this world is and how much suffering people are undergoing. And the only hope is Krishna consciousness. But it doesn't fall down on their head like a lightning bolt. It's you and I who have to share it. This movement, we're deputed. It's expected we take up the charge. So if we can pray for the desire of full realization, the taste, the faith, the conviction in chanting Hare Krishna, and understand and follow the mission of the spiritual master to whatever degree we're able, knowing that Krishna is God and that's the perfection. All of life is simply meant to be used for His pleasure. It's nothing but He and His energies, and it's nothing is ours. We can simply use this body and everything that He gives us appropriately in His service. If we have that kind of firm conviction, Krishna consciousness, nothing else, then that's the perfection of understanding the spiritual master. And through that realization, then we can become clay in His hands, molded in how He would like. Now, if I can just shift it to the aspect of the day we celebrate. He left us. And we sang the song, getting just a little pinch of understanding how sometimes the Vaishnavas, they know the spiritual master is always with them. When Srila Prabhupada went to Mayapur, when we had our property, when we had the temple, his godbrothers criticized him. Why didn't you stop at the Samadhi, at the Sri Chaitanya Mat, and come and offer obeisances to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? You're so proud you won't do that? Every one of any disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur would do that if they came to Mayapur. He said, do you think that I'm separate from my spiritual master for even one moment? He is always with me. And this is the Siddhanta. One who follows the instructions of the spiritual master is always with him. So he will never leave those who take advantage of his books and his instructions. That's all of us for the next 10,000 years. The one-on-one relationship. Now it's a mystery, transcendental mystery, because you don't hear of Srila Prabhupada if you weren't first generation, didn't meet Srila Prabhupada, etc. When he was here, it's a mystery that everyone has an individual relationship with the spiritual master, as we do with Krishna, but there's a transparent medium that connects you. And that's understood to be the Guru, the sadhus, those who tell us about Srila Prabhupada, and those who set the example of what kind of life he wanted us to live. That we, through them, by their mercy, we can develop our relationship. And there's validity to what I'm saying for us first generation devotees too, because without Siksha Gurus, it's a lonely path trying to become Krishna conscious. It's amazing that Srila Prabhupada, he did his bhajan for 8 to 10 years in Vrindavan, alone. He wasn't hanging out like we do at breakfast and shooting the breeze. He was so focused the whole time, just praying for empowerment and studying and doing Harinam and printing, distributing his BTGs, and then the Bhagavatams and all that entailed. He stayed there, just like some of our Prabhus. For 8 months they've been in their home, basically in solitary bhajan. We have the internet now, thank goodness. And the other day I looked at Vaisheshika Prabhu, listening to him glorify Govardhan. And I was just so inspired to see how on fire he is, even though he's not having physical sangha. Those who are on this level, they can do that. Prabhupada did it. No obstacle gets in the way that keeps them from staying focused and increasing and advancing in their relationship and service to their spiritual master. So, most of us, Sangha is very, very important. That's why Prabhupada, one of the pillars of ISKCON, to give the Sangha so that we can support each other in these topics. Turning to, having said he's always present, eternally in Vani, in his instructions, in May of 1977, May 17th, he came to Vrindavan and we got to see the shape he was in. Not very good shape. He was not well. He said, so I cannot speak, I'm feeling very weak. I used to go to other places like Chandigarh program, but I canceled the program because the condition of my health is very deteriorating. So I preferred to come to Vrindavan. If death takes place, let it be here. So there's nothing to be said new. Whatever I have to speak, I've spoken in my books. Now you try to understand it and continue your endeavor. Whether I'm present or not, it doesn't matter. As Krishna is living eternally, similarly, living being also lives eternally. But Kirta Yasya Sajivati, one who has done service to the Lord, lives forever. So you've been taught to serve Krishna, and with Krishna, we'll live eternally. Our life is eternal. Nahanyama te hanyamane sharire. A temporary disappearance of this body, it doesn't matter. Body is meant for disappearance. Tatade hantara prapti. So live forever by serving Krishna. Thank you very much. Now you can discuss. So that's when he laid the bomb that he seriously thought I might die, leave this world. And he spent most of, from May to the disappearance, November, 14th, in Vrindavan, with the exception, as I think Vijay was made mention, went to London, mentioned in terms of the deterioration of the health, and then brought him right back so quickly when that took place. But there's one nice thing that I want to share from Bhakti True Swami. He was had he gotten sannyas yet? By golly, I think he had sannyas. I'm not sure though. That's hold on to that. But anyway, he was cooking for him. He's Prabhupada's personal servant. And Prabhupada said, he asked me not to cook, saying, you can see I can't eat anything. Still, why are you cooking? You have so many things to do. Why are you wasting your time cooking for me? And Bhakti True Prabhu said, I cook hoping that someday you'll feel better and would like to eat something. Srila Prabhupada replied, I will get better only when I leave this world. Now this type of statement breaks the heart of one who loves his spiritual master. But it's something that Krishna arranges. It's not just for us neophytes reawakening in Krishna consciousness in this world, us jivas. Vipralambha is there in the spiritual world. Certainly in the eternally manifest leelas of the Lord in this world. And it's an essential part of the loving reciprocation with the Lord and His devotees. If it wasn't there, then the heart would never experience the growth, the dynamic depth of emotion, the love that can be there, that is there for those who have a true relationship. Srila Prabhupada talked about this love and how ISKCON is meant to be based upon it. The relationship with the spiritual master and the devotees is meant to be based on love. Love and trust was the slogan. So he said, you've got some bit of love for me, therefore you can carry my order. Otherwise it's not possible. And I cannot also, you're foreigners, you're Americans, I came from another country. I have no account. I cannot also order you. You must do this, otherwise I'll chastise you. But because there's love, it's a connection of love. I can also become bold enough to chastise you. But you also, in whatever condition, you carry my order due to the basic principle of love. And our whole philosophy is love. We're just trying to learn how to love Krishna. That's it. So without the basic principle of love, these things cannot be conceived. So, if we want to develop a loving relationship with Srila Prabhupada and our own spiritual masters and the devotees, then we need to know their life, we need to know their teachings, and we need to follow them. Srila Prabhupada said that attraction for Krishna and compassion for the conditioned souls are inseparable. If you have attraction for Krishna, you can't be without the desire to help the conditioned souls. For those of us who don't have it, we should realize how fallen we are, and we should pray for it. We should pray for the attraction. We should pray for the desire to help. That's what this is about. Srila Prabhupada, we mentioned on Govardhan Puja, wanted to do parikrama, and he drove the devotees crazy, thinking he would suffer so much and no doubt leave his body. And they said, you drove us crazy. You drove us mad in anxiety. And basically, Prabhupada said, that's my duty. And I'm going to read one last thing and then end here. I think I need to go to... Okay. I was going to read... Srila Prabhupada had an astakam that he wrote, Sri Viraha Astakam, separation from his own spiritual master, but I think I'll leave that for your homework. The refrain was, O Srila Prabhupada, I'm feeling lost and alone in your absence on this day upon which you departed from our vision. So this is a festival of separation, and you don't feel it if you haven't got it. You don't feel the loss of something you don't have. But those who have a relationship, to varying degrees, they feel the separation. They wish, they hope, they look forward to when we get to come back in his association. But I was going to look. This was okay. Let me go. Let's see. Get there. Go down a bit. How far down would that be? Not too far, I don't think. Will I be able to see it? Do you remember when I have told it before, does anybody remember the pastime with the Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya, who helped Srila Prabhupada install the deities at Allahabad? Srila Prabhupada said two amazing things. The one that I remember that really sticks out is he said in a lecture, so just as we're installing the deities here today, then in another universe, in just a moment, this pastime will take place, showing that the activities of ISKCON are part of the eternal Leela of Lord Chaitanya. That Srila Prabhupada is the intimate associate of Lord Nityananda, enacting the will and desire of Shishi Gaurnitai. But the other thing he's told Pradyumna Prabhu and Yasodananda Swami, that these pujaris, these Brahmins who are installing our deities so that the public can appreciate its bona fide, not just a bunch of Western yahoos, who are uncultured, who don't know, boy, what a band of monkeys. Prabhupada did his best to train us up, and we got the essence of it to preach, but the achar, the behavior, that has come much more gradually. But so the public would be satisfied. These Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya Brahmins came, and a couple of brothers, and Srila Prabhupada said, these are real Brahmins. Now in the books, in the purport, you can see Prabhupada says in Kali Yuga there aren't any Brahmins. Where do you find a Brahmin? He said, these are real Brahmins. Whatever they ask for, whatever they need, you give them all facility. And they appreciated Srila Prabhupada when they got to meet him and get some of his association. They saw him for who he was. Somebody on the level of like Ramanujacharya, a world preacher fully empowered by the Lord. And so in 1977, when Srila Prabhupada asked that his murti be made and put in all the different temples, then they knew Shastra. Ramanujacharya, before he passed away, right in the very end, he installed one murti, in another temple far away. And when that deity was installed, the ceremony took place, then Ramanujacharya in Sri Rangam, he shed a tear or two of blood. The connection between the people who come to the murti, bow down, touch the feet, pray to, worship, etc., there's a transfer of karma. And if one is still alive, when that's going on in the deity form, then the person embodied in this world takes on that karma and can suffer because of it. And Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya, he came from where he lived in south of India. He came on it by his own personal expense to Bombay. Prabhupada was there, and he came and he paid his respects, and he shared with him so much Shastric quotes, saying how this is not advisable, that you will suffer taking on the sins of all these people. And after he'd said so many things like that, concluding that essential point, Srila Prabhupada said, that's why I've come. And that's when Kamar Bhattacharya got the full realization of this is not an ordinary mortal. He's Krishna's full-on representative. He descended from the spiritual world. His life was exemplary in every respect, simply full of devotion. He folded his hands, he circumambulated Srila Prabhupada 3 times, and then he left. So on that note, I think I will end. Srila Prabhupada is our, he's a direct representative of Lord Nityananda, who we call Lord Chaitanya Petit Pavan. Lord Nityananda is more merciful than Lord Chaitanya, and Srila Prabhupada's fully absorbed in that mood. Qualified, unqualified, let everyone have the opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. So we'll have, it'll be virtual, the temple's closed, but we'll set it up for this evening that you will be able to offer your glorification to Srila Prabhupada if you like. I strongly encourage everybody to write an offering, just like we do for his appearance day. And if you want, you'll be able to share. That is our intention, and it should take place this evening. 5:30 kirtan and afterwards glorification. So please take advantage. This is a wonderful day to connect with Srila Prabhupada, the mercy, the flood of mercy that is available here. To have our hearts changed, our lives changed by his mercy and instructions. So would anybody like to contribute, or any questions? Or Thomas Beck appreciated, everything's in my books. Thank you, Thomas. Hare Krishna. I don't see the picture. Ramapati Prabhu.
As you were mentioning in the beginning, different sastras predicting Prabhupada. Jnana Prabhu always quotes this verse from Bhavishya Purana, this statement. Like there will be a saintly person wearing saffron clad, he will be speaking in Malacha Bhasa, and he will be traveling different places spreading the glories. So Jnana Prabhu always
and will initiate by fire.
And initiate by fire. So he always quotes that.
Yeah. That wasn't done with Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, am I right? Yeah. Those yogis giving the Harinam, Yeah. All over the place. He was predicted. Thank you for sharing that one. Bhavishya Purana. Yes. Jamal has the mic then, Bhakta Bhav.
Just on the same note, where's the verse that you quoted? Senapati Bhakta? Is it?
Yeah, Senapati Bhakta. That's from the what did we say it was? The Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Krishna speaking to Mother Ganga.
Where can I? But do we have the exact? Because I'd like to see it. Do we have the exact?
I was taking. I'll show you. I'll share with you what I have. Good to see you, Bhakta Bhav. Hare Krishna.
It's good to be here. Thank you for calling on me.
And speak up.
I just want to say, I just want to thank yourself and all the senior devotees and all the grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada for the gift of Srila Prabhupada. I feel so connected and so akin to Srila Prabhupada. It's like I don't understand how I can miss somebody that I've never personally met. But through your mercy and all the other devotees, I just want to give my appreciation. And it's been such a blessing in my life, and it's just amazing how emotional I get. Over, like I said, someone that I've never personally met, but through his teachings, somehow he's empowered all of you to give the gift And I just want to thank you for that.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki. That's His divine grace. The teachings, the glorifications, the service of. That's His mercy. Anybody else? Then I look forward to our little, what do we call it? Pushpanjali for the ashram, and then hearing your glorifications. Don't let me down. Please share your heart. We'll all take inspiration in hearing your glorifications as Srila Prabhupada. So, thank you, as Bhakta Bhag has said, for your association, your tolerance, the devotional qualities you share and inspire us with. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.